I want to talk this morning a bit more about anxiety. We covered anxiety yesterday, but we didn't really discuss what causes anxiety. How come people get anxious, and what is anxiety really about? Because, that's part of that skill building process we were talking about. So to me, anxiety is always about what might happen. Anxiety is never about the moment, it's always about what might happen. So if somebody's afraid of a spider, for instance, then it's always afraid that the spider might jump on them, crawl on them, bite them, hurt them. There's something about it I don't like. Cool. What is that about? Because other people can just go along, pick up the spider, put it on their hand and take it outside. I know my dad could do that. I can trap a huntsman, for instance, huge big huntsman like that. I can trap it, put it in a jar and take it outside. But the difference between where my father was and I is that he could just pick it up, put it on his hand and take it out and let it go. I can't do that. That's when I get anxious. So anxiety has different stages, if you like. So why do I fear that? I don't know why I fear it, but it's there. It's part of me. And if I worked on it and worked on the skills of it and worked my way up, I know that I could let it go because the huntsman isn't going to be dangerous to me. Now, that's the same thing for anybody who has anxiety. And if you let anxiety interfere with your happiness, you are sacrificing part of your life for lack of a skill. Now, you can do that. It's your prerogative. It's your life. But if you want to get out of anxiety, the most important thing is to understand you don't have to have it. Hello, Joe. Welcome this morning. You don't have to have it. You don't have to have it because there are things within you that can help you to get out of it. But if you get stuck in it, it's very difficult to find those things because you're not looking for a solution. You're looking at, why have I got it? Why have I got it? Why have I got it? Why am I anxious? Why am I anxious about a snake or a spider or going outside? Why am I anxious? And then what happens is it goes into a loop in the head and it goes into the mental system. So remember that there's 4 energies within our body. We've got a physical body, mental body, emotional body, spiritual body, and the anxiety can be trapped anywhere within those 4. So how does anxiety come about? What happens? Well, sometime, somewhere, something happened that caused you to believe that you couldn't handle a certain situation. Don't know what happened because you haven't gone there yet. But there was something that happened. Now, I believe in past lives. Whether you do or not, that's okay. It doesn't matter. What matters is there is a cause. And the cause can be discovered and the cause can be let go of. And when you let go of the cause, you don't have the embedded impression in any of your energy bodies anymore. And when you don't have the embedded impression, you no longer have the anxiety. But even more importantly, anxiety anyway didn't have to interfere with your happiness. If anxiety interferes with your happiness, you are sacrificing your life and aspects of your life to the anxiety. Let me explain. I can be anxious part of the time. I can be happy most of the time. But if I say I can't be happy because I'm anxious, then I've just sacrificed most of my life's happiness to a segment of my life, a very small segment of my life, which is way back somewhere else. But if you learn to breathe through any anxiety and recognize that you have the power over the anxiety no longer interferes with your happiness. And because what we're talking about each morning is happiness, it's more important than ever that you understand anxiety cannot cause you to be unhappy unless you give it power. Depression cannot cause you to be unhappy unless you give it power. Trauma cannot cause you to be unhappy unless you give it power. If you want happiness, you can have a momentary happiness, and you can add to that happiness every day a little more of a momentary happiness. You can sit outside and watch the sunrise. You can sit outside and watch the rain. You can sit outside and in Melbourne, you can watch 4 seasons in one day. It doesn't matter. You can enjoy the moment when you know how. But in order to know how, you have to develop the skills. Because you've been brought up in a miserable situation, then chances are you were never taught the skills of how to be happy. If you took on something, a physical disformity or something else as a child, then chances are, if you're pointing to that all the time as the reason for not being happy, you are carrying the seeds of that inside of you, and that is causing the unhappiness that you're feeling. It doesn't mean you can't be happy. It just means that you've confused two things and fused them together. So when we're talking about happiness and we're talking about the things you don't have and the things you do have that you don't want, anxiety is top of the list because people regularly use anxiety as a way of avoiding happiness. Now, do they deliberately avoid happiness by using anxiety? No, they don't deliberately use it. It's just something they learned to do, usually as a child. It's something they learned to do because they were never taught the skill of how not to. I've done thousands and thousands of past life rescues, inner child rescues, teenage rescues, adult rescues, work rescues, all different works through using hypnotherapy. And I've heard all different sorts of things, from people being abused who didn't think they could ever get over it, to getting over it, to people being in cults when they were children and being abused in the cult or being taught certain things in the cult, to people who've been indoctrinated with religion, which has terrified them because they're afraid of hell. All different sorts of things that have created fear blocks within the body. And the beautiful thing, there is nothing which can't be released when you know how. And that's a skill building process. And it doesn't matter what it is. So if somebody is afraid of something, there is a reason why they're afraid. Somebody afraid that they're going to walk outside, they're going to be attacked, then usually there's something that they've read, saw, or has happened to them which had caused them to be fearful. So the fear has been built up because it's been focused on. Anything we focus on can create a fear within us, which will build and build and build if we don't have the skill to distill the fear and let it go. So, if I'm afraid of being alone and I walk into a relationship and I carry that fear with me, then that fear is going to create anxiety in the relationship, and I will find a way to be alone in the relationship by cutting off the love that I could otherwise receive. Because my anxiety has to be dealt with in some way, and I can only deal with it in a way that I have the skills to deal with it. If I'm afraid of what might happen in my relationship, I will usually find a way to destruct the relationship by not paying attention enough to the relationship because the fear might get in the way. Now, if I want a loving relationship, if I want an open, loving relationship, I have to find a way to go into that relationship without fear, without worry, without worrying about what might happen, without manipulation, without clinging, cloying, doing anything else. I have to find a way to just be present in the relationship if I want the relationship to work. And I have to be able to speak up for myself because I've got a voice. I've got 2 ears, so I've got to listen as well. So all of these things that are going on, whether it's a relationship with mother and father, whether a relationship with brother and sister, whether it's a relationship with anybody else, school kids, anybody else, I have to be willing to partake and be part of that. Otherwise, the anxiety that I'm feeling can hold me back. And if I attach the anxiety to my sense of happiness, that can pull down my happiness. So a personal note, trauma happened to me when I was a child. And I'll maybe go into a little bit later on another one of these live videos. But a trauma happened to me. I couldn't understand it. The reference I got from my parents didn't help me understand it. So my way of dealing with it was to go into books, reading this, reading that, reading comics, reading stories, sitting there reading and drawing, rather than understanding why did that happen to me? How could that happen? How could anybody let that happen, that traumatic thing? How could they let it happen? And so rather than being able to discuss it, I shelved it. And I shelved that for 45 years. And in shelving it for 45 years, it affected afterwards everything that I did, because it caused an insecurity in me that I didn't know how to deal with. And you could look at me during those times of growing up and saying, are you happy? And I would look back and I would say, I don't know. What's happiness? What I discovered at the age of 50 was I was numb. I'd numb myself. Reading, filling myself with other things had numbed me. And when I'm numb, it's very difficult to be totally happy. It's much more about being partially happy sometimes. So if I'm going in the swimming pool and I go for a swim, I'm happy. But if I come to jump off the jetty, which I was afraid to do, I'm unhappy because I can't jump off the jetty, so I'll shelve that. I won't go on the jetty anymore. And then I've got this thing in the back of my head, I'm too afraid to jump off the jetty, I'm a scaredy cat, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm reflecting back on myself. And then I don't want to go out of the house, so it's easier not to go and play sport. It's easier to stay in the house. If I go and play sport, I might get hurt. So I become more afraid of getting hurt. And this is how anxiety impacts on someone's happiness. It impacted on mine. Now, am I totally happy now? No, not totally happy. I don't believe anybody who has any sense can be totally happy. However, I'm happy more often than I'm not. I'm of service. I enjoy being of service. I feel happy when I'm of service. I'm helping people. I'm helping people explore the reasons they're not happy, and that helps me be happy because I know of being of service. So doing things that I enjoy doing, understanding myself, living a spiritual life, living a physical life, going down the beach, 5:30 walk in the morning, watching the sun come up, just being with mates, being with someone I love, all of these things lead to me being happier within myself. And it's not dependent on anyone else. It's not dependent on who might show up. It comes from inside of me. The physical anxiety that I used to feel, I don't feel very much anymore. I learned the skills to overcome it. The emotional anxiety I used to feel, I don't feel very more. I overcame it. The spiritual anxiety I used to feel about what might happen, about what's going to happen, I faced death. I face death in family around me. I face death in all different sorts of ways. Death doesn't scare me anymore to any great degree. Yeah, I don't want to die. I don't want to be hurt. I definitely don't want to be hurt. But the thing I fear, if there is anything, is not being able to voice what I know. Not being able to talk about this type of thing, about energy, about healing, about natural health, about the way that a lot of what we know about health is distorted by people with more money. A lot of what you see on the internet is distorted rather than what's the truth about health? What's the truth about things like arthritis and diabetes and anxiety and depression and trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder? You know, we're going to cover all of those things as we go along, because there is a different truth there that most people don't know. And when I let anxiety get in the way of that, then I'm more likely to go along with the herd rather than speak out as an individual about what I've learned. If I'm afraid to speak out, if I'm afraid to say what I know, what I've learned, what I've understood, what I've studied, what I've actually experienced, then the status quo stays. But the more that I can bring what I've learned, the skills I've learned, the skills I can teach others into this situation, the more I know I can help others overcome anxiety. And if anxiety was the thing stopping their happiness, I can help deliver, if you like, one more happy person to the planet. And that absolutely makes me happy. And if I can do that with thousands and thousands of people, it won't make me any more happy than it does to do it with one. Because everybody, I believe, deserves to find happiness. Everybody on this planet can find happiness within themselves when they have the skills to do so. We've just confused happiness with having things. It's not about having things. It's not about the jet boat. It's not about the big boat. It's not about the plane. It's not about the money, not about the gold or the wealth or anything else. Happiness is an inside job. And if I can't be happy inside of me, chances are I'm going to look outside for happiness. But the place I have to find it is within. So, a bit of a rant today, I know, but this is something which is very dear to my heart. That I believe the only reason why people aren't happy and the planet isn't happier is because they don't have the skills. They don't know how to create happiness in their lives. And talking about it and talking about it and talking about it is not going to deliver skills to people. I don't care who you are. You can talk about it till the cows come home. You've got to do the work. You have to join a skill building program and something which is going to help you to develop those skills. And that's what we're about at Aussie Blokes Talk. That's why we're doing these video sessions, is to help people understand that happiness is an inside job and that skill building is the thing that will take you there. So that's what we're offering. We're offering skill building programs. We're in the early stages. We haven't got everything set up yet, but we're getting there. So thanks everyone for listening. Please comment, like, share. Let people know that there are ways that they can be happy if you believe in what I say. So, day 6 on happiness, step 6, understand you do not have to let anxiety stop you from being happy.